On this episode, I visit with County Board of Supervisors member Marcus Fedler, and that's for Washington County for the Board of Supervisors, and standing out front of the Washington County Courthouse right now in Washington, Iowa. And we are going to discuss what I call the shenanigans of the Highland School Board referendum for $15 million that was on the November 5th, 2024 election, and like I said, the shenanigans that have taken place on that. This episode is brought to you by Griner Auto Body of Washington, Iowa, using state-of-the-art techniques and decades of experience to get your car back on the road after an accident. Car Doctor of Washington, Iowa, no matter who Frankensteined it, they can fix and clean and customize it. McDonald Boneyard of Keota, Iowa, for all your farm equipment and auto recycling needs. Hinshaw Trailer Sales of Richland, Iowa. You need a trailer, they've got your trailer, and they fix what they sell and don't in their full-time repair shop. Girling Repair of Winfield, Iowa. If your mower is dead, call Fred, your Husqvarna, Aaron's, and Gravely dealer, and Fred fixes and sells snow blowers. B&B Propane and the family of Jet Stops present Southeast Iowa Today. I'm John Bain, author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and your host. Let's visit with Marcus. Marcus, welcome to Season 3, Episode 1.
Glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. I really appreciate you being on the program and helping us shed some more light on this controversy regarding the November 5th, 2024 bond referendum, $15 million bond referendum for the Highland School District. And there's some controversy that's been brewing about this. You want to kind of share, as a County Board of Supervisor, your thoughts on that?
Sure. The bond was obviously the Highland School wanted the $15 million bond, which is fine. I don't think anybody's really upset that it passed on election day necessarily, or that it just that there were some votes that were cast from outside the school district that were identified on the day of the election, and then subsequent to that, at a board of supervisor meeting, a couple of times we talked about it. But it wasn't really pursued, I guess, until after the election, or many days after the election. So.
Well, talking to Ron Griner, who, in full disclosure for my audience and for you, also is a sponsor. His business, Griner Auto Body, is a sponsor of this podcast, but just putting that out there so nobody thinks I'm hiding something. He reached out to Dan Widmer, the former county auditor, on November 27th, day before Thanksgiving, and Dan said, "Well, you're going to have to pay a $300 bond," and Ron paid him the cash, $300. Dan wrote him out a receipt, and then Dan, this is what Ron has shared, Dan said, I'm not sure if this is the way I'm supposed to do this. We need to talk to the county attorney. Let me give you your money back, and you give me the receipt, and I'll tear it up.
Right. So in order to have a bond, you first have to have some type of litigation, whatever that might be, some type of contest of some sort with the court system. The requirement of an election that has had illegal votes, which is what these were. People from outside the district voted in an election that they weren't qualified to vote in.
And those people were just handed ballots.
Sure. It's not to no fault of their own. I mean, They didn't know they were doing this, and neither did the poll workers. And it's not necessarily their fault in general. It's just a mistake happened. And what Ron was trying to do was rectify that mistake. So one of the requirements of Code Section 57 of the Iowa Code is to file a protest or a contest. So you're going to contest the election.
And Ron, we should also mention the day of the election, Ron made Dan Widmer, the county auditor, aware of it.
I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure about whether or not he did the day of, but I know that
because I have on video from a prior episode, Dan said I knew that day, and by
right.
2:30 we got it fixed. I wish I would have known sooner.
Correct. Right.
So
So Dan,
he knew
yes,
the day of the election.
He was well aware of it.
Yeah.
All the um, uh, previous ballots that were handed out. So any of the ones that went out for mail-in ballots, anyone that were prior to election ballots at the courthouse, all those were handed out appropriately because they knew they had two different ballots. So the only ones that were spoiled, if you want to call it that, happened on the day of the election, which is a pretty easy math problem if you think about it. If you have a total number of ballots printed, you have a total number of ballots left, and then you have the total number of people that voted, and you know where they live and in what precinct they live in, which they do. You don't have to know how they voted. You just then you can determine pretty easily. And it turns out it takes about 15 minutes to find out exactly what those numbers would have been and should have been. I asked for that total number of spoiled ballots on the 19th
of December
of November.
November, okay.
So that was the day that we were told we were canvassing the second tier as supervisors. We canvassed the votes. We had already on the 12th canvassed the rest of the votes for the county elections, and then we did that on the 13th, and then the following 19th we did the second tier, which means we get Loiza County and Johnson County ballots back to the courthouse, and that was the only thing on their agenda that day to verify as far as election results go. And so we all sat in a table on the 19th, and we talked about how those how those ballots came in and so on. And so at that point, I'd asked them specifically how many votes came out of Waco School District. And the individual that was responsible for voting at the time, for the voting counts and all the stuff, that the individual that Dan had working for, Liz, she couldn't answer the question. I asked Dan for the information, and he didn't answer the question either. So I voted no. Instead of voting in the affirmative to certify the canvass, I voted no, and I refused to sign the information. I encouraged my fellow supervisors to do the same. The county attorney made the recommendation that we certify it, because if we don't certify it, we have nothing to contest, which I disagree with that sentiment, and I've explained that to our county attorney that I don't agree with his sentiment on that issue. At that point, it could have been resolved. If we would have had the information that took 15 minutes to get and was available on November 6th, we could have answered that question on the 19th. And then the rest of the supervisors could have voted not to approve, because there is a contestable offense, and we would have had a revote. But that didn't happen. So then what comes...
How many other members are on the...
4. There's 5 total.
5 total, so the 4 others.
Right. And that all goes to say that I'm only speaking on my behalf.
Right.
I'm not speaking on the behalf of the Board of Supervisors. I'm just speaking as Marcus Fedler. I'm a District 3 county supervisor, but I am also a constituent and a Highland bond voter. So I have kind of a lot of hats I'm wearing right now.
And any of those members that would like to come on this program...
All right, thanks.
Any of those members that would like to come on this program are welcome to do so. I mean, that's how you got on here. You reached out to me by a comment on the YouTube channel. Here we are today on January 3rd.
Well, and I think initially you had made mention about the bond. I want to be clear about that, because that's important. According to Section 57, you have to provide a petition. It has to include 1% of the voters, which is 2,200 voters. So you had to have 2,200 or 22 signatures. I think Ron got like 29 or 28 or something like that. He got enough, but he filed that the day after the 19th on the certification. He filed it on the 20th. So he has been extremely responsive. I mean, from the very moment that we knew this was wrong, he has been at the auditor's office, communicating with Dan, communicating with the county attorney.
And he's a local politician too. He's a member of the Ainsworth City Council, so he's got constituents he's looking out for.
Right, and I live in Ainsworth, so
you're one of his constituents.
So it's kind of a interwoven web, but small town Iowa, you gotta love it. Yeah. So that was one of the things that I encouraged Ron to do. Was, like I said, there's Section 57. There's a way to do this, and so got the petition put together. He did a lot of research on how to do that. Got the petition put together. He got the signatures, and he got them turned in on the 20th. What the code doesn't really say specifically, if you read Section 57, it doesn't really say that it has to be presented with a bond or with anything. It just says, have a petition signed. So he was working with the county attorney and the county auditor about, okay, what do I need? Here's the thing, and he got it stamped on the 20th. He said, well, it needs to come with a bond, and so he handed it in on the 20th. The auditor and the county attorney talked back and forth. Well, he has to have a bond. So Ron kind of misunderstood what $3,000 meant, and they said 10%. Well, that's if you go to a bonding agent. So if you want to put a $3,000 bond down, you put 10% down, which is $300.
Right.
You put that with a bonding agent. The bonding agent actually puts up the $3,000. So it's a pretty common scenario, but in that scenario, you don't get your $300 back because you're going through a bondsman. So, and keep in mind at this point, we knew that there was an issue, but we didn't know exactly what the issue was. We knew that it was contestable. We were pretty confident. We had a high level of confidence that it was contestable. But let's say there was only 22 votes. Mm-hmm. Well, if there's only 22 votes cast that were wrong and it passed by 28, there's nothing to contest.
Right.
Even if all 22 of them voted yes, it still passes. Mm-hmm. It passed by 28. So we had to get a number higher than 28 to make this contest have some legs and legitimacy. And also keep in mind, this information that we asked for that we didn't get till December 5th was available November 6th, the day after the election. That's what frustrates me the most about all this, is how the whole process just felt like feet dragging, and I don't want to do it, and I'm not I don't want to provide you the information even after I asked for it.
Well, someone from the outside looking in that doesn't have a dog in the fight, that's exactly what it looks like to me.
Absolutely. And in the paper, I guess there's a report now in the paper recently about some of the things that happened with the election individual that resigned. Is basically listed out in there that I asked for that information. I was refused that information, and that was one of the reasons why she was terminated or forced to resign. Well, I don't want to comment on any of that, but what I do want to say is it was in the paper. Read it for yourself. It's in the journal from whatever day that was, yesterday, I believe, or the day before. Or maybe it was New Year's, like 31st. I think maybe it was the 31st. Read the paper. It's pretty clear. If you want to read that article or reference it, that'd be fine. It was.
And I have. I
yeah. So in that particular article, it was pretty clear that she was requested the information. She was not presented. She did not give that information. That's in the meeting on the 19th. I asked for it. I got dumb stares. I asked everybody in the room. Tammy Stewart, the new auditor, said, "Yeah, I think we can get that information. All we have to do this, isn't it, Dan?" And Dan never commented on that. Liz never commented on that. They wouldn't provide me the information. The county attorney said, "Well, we don't have anything to contest until after we certify." And I said, "Well, I don't agree with that. I think this, if that's the case, then why do I get to vote no, or why do I get to vote yes?"
Right.
I mean, we're sitting here. So Ron's put in the position as a private citizen to put up $3,000 of his own money to contest something that should have been contested on November 6th. It's frustrating to me that we have to go through this process.
By the county officials who have been voted in to represent the taxpayers of Washington County. This is just a real head scratcher to me.
Well, and I don't like the word official. I've never liked the word official. I'm an elected representative of the people, always have been, always will be. I swore an oath to the Constitution of the United States and the state of Iowa. I'm elected to represent the Constitution for the people of the state of Iowa. That's what I'm. I don't swear an oath to represent people. Right. I swear an oath to represent the Constitution, and so that's what I do. And in this particular circumstance, the system was just drag your feet, don't answer any questions, plug your head in the sand and hopefully it all goes away.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the way it felt. That's the way I felt in the situation when I was asking questions and nobody would provide me answers. Somebody lost their job over it. And unfortunately, here we are, what, a couple months later now.
Yeah, almost 2 months.
Yeah. And Ron has been working his butt off to try to get this thing to go to a situation where it can be contested. So,
and then I see today, before I came here, I was online and looked at the Southeast Iowa Union website. They've got a story coverage from Monday when you all met, I believe is the date earlier this week.
Yeah.
And basically, the attorneys that are representing the school district on this, I guess, who attended via telephone, they weren't actually there.
Correct.
According to the article, they basically say, you know what? We agree. This stinks. Those are my words. I'm summarizing, but we agree this isn't right. But you know what? Ron Greiner didn't file that in the proper order, so let's just move on and start charging the taxpayer.
Right. What I haven't read that article, but I was at that meeting on that Monday, and there are two hangups. One is it a contestable offense? Is it contestable according to 57? If you read 57, yes, it was. There's no question about that. So then the process followed. That's the next part. In a timely fashion, we have 20 days from certification. What the school district is claiming basically is that the certification happened on the 13th. I voted on the 19th not to to certify. I refused to sign the certification papers. We were presented with all of the numbers for that election on the 19th. As far as I know, we were not presented with any of the results for the Highland bond measure on the 12th, but I'm not 100% sure on that, and I'm checking on that. I'll probably know more next week, but I'm pretty sure we weren't given any information to certify on that portion of the election.
So how can you certify?
Exactly. So my question, and I asked that question that day, it's like, so can we all agree that this is a contestable offense? It's one of the first things I asked because that was very important. Hey, we got 96 votes that were cast inappropriately. It only won by 28, so this is a contestable offense. We all on the same page? Yes. And he said the only thing that they have to argue now is timeliness. And if they pick the 13th as the certification date, well, that means that Ron got his paperwork in on the 6th, and the 20 days expired on the 3rd. So through a technicality at this point, he did not file in a timely fashion, even though Ron was up there every day. And the county attorney and the county auditor both told him he has till December 9th. And both of them said, and we'll swear to this, they've both said they would, that, we don't want this to be thrown out because of some technicality. And they both agree that it should be contested. And so here we are in a situation where it should be contested. Ron did all his due diligence to get it contested, tried to pay the bond in a timely fashion on the 27th, like you pointed out earlier. And all he needed was $3,000, which he had. But all we needed to make sure that it was a contestable offense in the first place was 15 minutes of work by the poll worker,
right,
or by the election certifier or election commissioner.
And here we are.
And we couldn't get that from them.
And here we are on January 3rd, 2025, and we know there were 96 ballots.
Correct.
That
were improperly cast. Correct.
Whether they voted yay or nay.
Doesn't matter.
Now, what are we teaching I'm asking this of the Highland School District.
Correct.
What are we teaching our kids, ladies and gents of that bunch? Because we're not teaching them honesty and integrity, and we're teaching them, I don't know if it's part of the participation trophy class system that we've been living through, but those days are over, folks.
Right.
It's time to be achievers, and I don't think you or Ron or anybody else that says, hey, this is wrong, say it's wrong because of the outcome. They say it's wrong because of the 96 votes that shouldn't go towards it.
Correct. Totally agree. 110%. And I hope that what ends up happening One of the things that's interesting is Highland School is being represented by the same attorney that the county has as representation for our human resources side. So it'll be interesting to see how that might play out.
Right now, I should put on the screen. Sounds like conflict of interest to me. Flash those words, conflict of interest.
It is. It is a bit. I would say it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe, but it is an employee. We do hire them for HR reasons. They are our attorney for negotiating contracts and things with employees. So I do see that might be. I mean, because this is an employee issue, so it could, in theory, be something. But I don't think we necessarily consulted them on this employee issue. So maybe, and we did hire them late last year. So maybe they weren't on board at the time. There's all kinds of things that we could probably go down on that. But yeah, it is interesting. But basically what happens now is there's a panel of 3 folks. There is Ron and the school district and an impartial third party, which turns out to be a judge from the Ottumwa area. And I've met the man. I think he's a reasonable individual, very thoughtful guy, and he knows the law, and he's capable of weaving himself through it, he's done a marvelous job of that so far that I can tell. I think the lawyers on the school district side are doing their job too. I don't think they're necessarily being bad or good or whatever. I think they're doing what they're instructed to do, which is good. And I think Ron has done everything he can. But now, see, Ron is in a position where he either defends himself as an individual or he hires a lawyer to do it for him.
Which is going to cost thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Right now, he's probably going to be into it another couple $1,000s. So on top of the $3,000 that he's already got on this thing, he's going to have another couple $1,000s just to do something that, if again, November 6th, we had the information that we didn't get until November 5th. If we had that information on November 6th and we presented that information to the county attorney and the county auditor, and then as supervisors were presented with that information on the 19th when we certified, I don't think anybody in that room would have certified it. And it would have been over.
So what do you guys on the board, I mean, this is wrong. Every single one of you knows it's wrong.
I don't know that every single one of us knows it's wrong. I'm only speaking for myself. I didn't vote for it, and I didn't sign the paperwork.
Say if we watch this podcast and the one prior and listen to it and everybody talking, it's pretty evident it's wrong.
Right. Well, I think we're also 6 weeks after the fact.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
We didn't know the total numbers until December 5th. The supervisors voted basically on the recommendation of the county attorney. I don't think necessarily that that's a bad thing to do. I just chose not to go along with it.
Right.
That doesn't mean that those guys are bad for going along with it. I think they just thought that given the circumstances, this was the proper course of action. I disagreed with that. Mm-hmm. I was willing to put my neck on the line to say that I don't like it. I'm not going to vote for it. And I'm not going to, I'm just not going to. I don't want to certify this election because I know it's wrong somehow. And I want to find out why it's wrong, and let's delay it until we can figure it out. And nobody agreed with me on that. And that's fine. They don't agree with me on a lot of things.
Sure.
I mean, and I don't agree with them on a lot of things. And so, unfortunately, it takes three or more to get something to pass. And so when the motion was made to certify, it passed 4-1. That's happened multitudes of times. Mm-hmm. I think given the information that they are presented with now, and they are, like you were saying, what everybody's talking about. Well, we're all talking about the 96 now, right. But we didn't know that until the 5th of December. Mm-hmm. So we could have had it on the 6th of November if we didn't have incompetence, in our auditor's department. And if we didn't have that incompetence, we could have had that information on the 19th. And I think then it would be a completely different story.
So agreed. Yeah. So we know that there was incompetence at the county auditor's office, mm-hmm. and someone was fired for that. And I believe she is turning around saying that she was unjustly fired. I believe that's going on now. But what if Dan Widmer would have said, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm going to throw a flag up in the air, I'm going to let everybody know this is what happened. Sure, it's a little embarrassing, but you know what? It's right. More embarrassing when you don't fix something, when you know about it.
I'm not going to comment on how Ron should have probably handled this, I would say that, I'm sorry, Dan. I'm not going to comment on that. I think that I think there's certainly a multitude of different ways that this could have been approached. All I can say that in my experience, in my lifetime, anytime that I have 100% relied on somebody to do a job that I had an expectation of, it always, not always, on occasion, it comes down to the situation where it didn't get done the way I would have wanted it done. And I think personally that in a situation like this, you trust your employees to do as best job as they can, but that you verify their results. And and that's one thing that I fail at doing in my business. I've failed at doing it as a county supervisor. I've made mistakes because I trusted people to do their job, and when they haven't, and I'll try not to let that happen again. But it comes back to trust but verify. And in this particular circumstance, I think that didn't happen, and it should have.
Very good. Very fair statement. We're at 24 minutes and 55 seconds of podcast excellence right now. Your last statement really sums it up, but if you have anything else you'd like to add, go ahead.
Well, I think overall, I think it's it's an indication of the convolutedness of election integrity. I think that 2020. I think I would say a lot of Republicans, and Republicans probably like me, felt that 2020 didn't go over all that great, and probably in some areas there were some election integrity issues. I'm not going to go down any of that conspiracy theory BS, but what I am going to say is that this is a perfect example of how it can be difficult to do the right thing, even given the information that Ron was given at the time he was given it. It takes time to get these things processed. You have 20 days to file a complaint. The law is pretty clear. There's a reason for that, and it makes sense why that's there. I don't have a problem with any of that. So then, when we start talking about, as far as I'm concerned, elections are more important than the freedom of speech. It's more important than your Second Amendment right. If you don't have elections, you don't have anything, especially in a Republican form of government, a republic type representative form of government. I mean, you have to elect folks to be put in a position to make decisions based on the Constitution, which we forget all the time, based on all these other things. But in order to have good people in those positions, you have to have free, fair elections, and you have to have them not marred by BS. I don't want the system to be marred by the BS that happened with this whole thing, but we should all, like you were saying earlier, you mentioned it, it's like just own up to the fact that a mistake was made, bury your pride and have it redone. If it costs money, it costs money. It doesn't matter. It's the cheapest dollars you can spend, and that's when you spend them.
Marcus, thanks for being on the program.
Yeah, you bet. No problem. Thank you.
There's a flaw in the slaw, folks, and I want to thank Marcus Fedler for being on the program today and being very candid and forthright on what has gone down. I thank you for watching, and I thank our sponsors, Griner Auto Body, Car Doctor, McDonald Boneyard, Hinshaw Trailer Sales, Girling Repair, B&B Propane, and the family of Jet Stops. I'm your host, John Bain. Stay friendly, Southeast Iowa.